Welcome back to News for Normies, everybody. If you have a normie in your life that needs to hear some news, especially with all the craziness going on in today's world of news and politics, hit that like button, share it with some of your friends, and let me know what you think down below. So, as I stated last week in a very quick and brief video, Joe Biden officially dropped out of the race for president on Sunday, July 21st, 2024. Since then, he has endorsed Kamala for president, and she allegedly raised like $100 million within 24 hours of that announcement. More on that here in a little bit. Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, wow, screwed that up, arrived in D.C. earlier this week, but was met by nobody from the Biden administration upon arrival. This is kind of out of tradition for when, world leaders arrive in the United States. They're usually met by somebody from the current administration when their plane lands. So that's weird. Also, he spoke in front of Congress and about the war in Gaza and slammed the pro-Hamas rioters. One of his lines that I thought was kind of funny was he said something along the lines of, "Gays for Gaza is like chickens for KFC." Kind of funny, I gotta admit. However, and I'm not gonna go into all the details of it right now, but the history of modern day Israel and the area known as Palestine goes back further than just 1948. It goes back to like the late 1800s. So if you want to know more about that, I highly encourage you go listen to the Martyr Made podcast hosted by Daryl Cooper. All of the episodes titled Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem. If you're a fan of Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, you will very much enjoy that podcast. Each episode is like several hours long, goes into very, very deep detail about every situation. So I'm ranting at this point, gonna move on to the news. That's just what happened this week. Speaking of these pro-Hamas rioters, they apparently stormed the Capitol building in D.C., but nobody from the left or corporate media is addressing this as an insurrection. Seems like some of this so-called justice is a little bit one-sided. Also, for anybody that vandalized and desecrated the Liberty Bell, I hope you're deported. Honestly, it's kind of a shame that you can't realize that in this country where you have the freedom of peaceful protest and expression and redress of grievances toward your government, you're going to go and vandalize the symbol of liberty in this country. Yeah, seriously, if you want to make change, hop on a plane, go to Gaza, and put your feet on the ground to do something. No? Okay, moving on. So as we all know, there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th. And since then, information about that has just been weird. It's been very, very weird, man. I talked about this last week, but apparently new information has been released claiming that Secret Service personnel were actually supposed to be on the roof of the building where the shooter took his shot at Trump. But they apparently left the rooftop because it was hot. Calling bullshit on that one. Also, apparently, a whistleblower from the Secret Service has also claimed that additional resources, such as overhead drones, were offered to the Secret Service, but were ultimately denied. I'm going to talk more about this here in a little bit too, but yeah, this seems more and more like somebody from within the Secret Service administration wanted Trump dead. I don't know how you screw things up as badly as they did and it not be some sort of like willful incompetence. Anyway, speaking of incompetence, that was a good segue. The Now, former Director of Secret Service Kimberly Cheadle was grilled by members of Congress on the complete failure of her agency to keep Trump protected. And after she was humiliated before Congress, she resigned. While it is a good thing that incompetent people are no longer working in high levels of the federal government, there still needs to be some changes with this, because even though she is no longer employed by the federal government, she's going to still enjoy a $50,000 per year pension from the federal government. So we really need to quit rewarding incompetence like this. And if somebody fails this badly on a national level, they should get no retirement, no pension, nothing like that, and you got to go get a job in the private sector. So good luck doing that, especially in a security detail, because I don't think anybody from a doggy daycare would hire you after such a blunder. So goodbye to Kimberly Cheadle, I guess. I don't know. I hope we never see her in public like this again. So last week I talked about how the Trump shooter apparently had like no social media presence whatsoever. Turns out he liked to frequent a social media site called Gab. I think I've heard of this before. I've never looked into it. There's so many different places anymore. I'm not gonna hop on every one of them. But apparently he made numerous pro-Biden posts on said social media site. So this definitely throws a monkey wrench into the whole narrative that he was a Republican that was all pissed off about Trump. Again, gonna talk more on that one later too. Speaking of Trump, I didn't know about this until this week, but apparently he has a lawsuit against ABC and George Stephanopoulos for defamation on alleged rape charges. This lawsuit is actually taking place in Florida, and therefore will likely end in Trump's favor. So good. I hope that ABC has not just the same kind of what's the word I'm looking for, treatment that CNN did with the Nick Sandmann story several years ago. I hope that they sue ABC for every single penny they have. I honestly would love to see these corporate media outlets just shut down completely. And with the abysmal ratings they get anymore, I honestly don't see how they stay afloat. It makes no sense to me. The only thing that would make sense is that they are getting paid by the federal government to stay on the air to just repeat government talking points. Anyway, rant over, moving on. I have to correct something that I had said last week. Last week I had said that Elon Musk had pledged to donate $45 million per month toward the Trump campaign until the election was over. But recently, this past week, Elon Musk has come out and denied that story. But he did say that he will probably donate to PACs that promote like pro-American objectives. So, PACs that would favor politicians that would maybe cut taxes or bring manufacturing jobs back to America. These things that make a country tenable and livable and survivable. So, yeah, just needed to clear the record on that one because, I don't want to be a CNN type and just spew, mis and disinformation. Oh boy, this next one. Yeah. So everybody that's on the internet has at least heard of Mr. Beast. He is very popular for, I guess, doing a lot of, I guess you would call it community service type stuff, but he does make a little bit of money off of it, but largely donates the money back to outreach, basically. A popular example of this was a while back. He had raised a bunch of money to help restore vision to people who had like chronic eye issues and stuff that were obviously fixable with surgery, but for people that just couldn't afford it. So, that's great and all, but when an employee and friend of yours is accused of trying to groom a 13-year-old, there's some questions to answer here, and that's this story here. Chris Tyson, who is employed by Mr. Beast and is apparently a friend of Mr. Beast, has recently been accused of grooming a 13-year-old for sexual purposes. Tyson claims to be transgender and was allegedly using a Discord server specifically for, I'll use the wording that Tim Pool likes to use, a Discord server for adult content. Tyson even attempted to meet up with this 13-year-old, who is a child, by the way, and I'm not entirely sure if this is true, but some allegations claim that Mr. Beast was on this Discord server as well. So that's not good for somebody who is known for doing a lot of community outreach stuff, let's just say. So I really hope that the allegations of this Discord server are false, but yeah, if you've got somebody working for you and someone that you claim as a friend is trying to hook up with a 13-year-old, that person shouldn't be a friend of yours anymore, and honestly should be thrown under a jail. So, I think a good way to deal with pedophiles is throw them into a wood chipper feet first. And I don't care if you claim to be part of the LGBT community or you're a priest, or anybody in between or outside of those two groups of people. You try to hook up with a child, wood chipper. Don't see why that's, so controversial to say. I mean, honestly, and I know it's a trope online, but if a dog bites too many people, it gets put down. And that's a dog, not a person. So if a person who has full cognition in their brain is trying to commit sexual crimes against children, why should we not also treat them the same? I don't understand. And somebody also this week I heard say something about how, like, people who lean more pro-life when it comes to abortion are also pro-death penalty. Okay, here's a quick rundown of that. Adults who are of full mental cognition, who choose to commit crimes that heinous, know that they're doing stuff that is hurting other people and should be punished for said crimes. Not ending the life of an unborn child who has done no wrong to anybody before it even exits the womb. So, there's a huge discrepancy in a grown man trying to rape a child and ending a pregnancy. I think. I don't know. This might turn around to bite me in the ass at some point, but we'll see. Y'all remember the Hunger Games? The books that became movies, and how the elites in the Hunger Games dressed in these, like, flamboyant and elegant type attire and hairdos and stuff. Well, apparently whoever orchestrated the opening ceremonies of the Olympics thought, hey, let's make that real. Because the opening ceremonies in France were straight up satanic and, quote, the gayest opening ceremonies ever, end quote. They performed a parody of The Last Supper that was put on by people dressed up like they were Hunger Games elites. And this was a clear middle finger to the church and anybody who believes in the Christian faith. So, yeah. Remind me again how these people, are just trying to express themselves, man. No. This is a clear middle finger to the church and anybody who believes in it. Now the church has its own problems. Not going to get off on a rant on that one, but yeah, there's definitely a battle going on for the spirit of humanity. I'll just put it like that. Also, speaking of France, there were apparently coordinated arson attacks on trains in France, but the corporate media have been reluctant to call these what they are: terror attacks. You don't have arsons that take place simultaneously without it being a terrorist type attack, okay? Now, what I'm about to say here, pure speculation, have no proof of this. This is just my own thoughts on the matter. If I had to guess, these arson attacks are probably from Islamic extremists that have come into their country. Here in America, we have been pointing out the failures of the Biden administration to curb illegal immigration via the southern border of the United States. Europe has been also facing the same kind of thing, but maybe at a worse scale across all of Europe. And their illegal aliens coming into their countries largely come from Northern Africa and the Middle East. What is the predominant religion of these areas, you might ask? Well, here's your answer: Islam. And we've seen how Islam takes over places. You either capitulate because you feel sorry for them, or you are forced to by fear of death. So, if I had to guess, these arson attacks are probably from Islamic extremists who hate all of Western culture. So, can we all just admit now that Islam, just as a whole, is not compatible with the modern world? I mean, I kind of harken back to what I just talked about with Benjamin Netanyahu. You know, the Gays for Gaza stuff. Like, if you tried to just live your life as a gay person in any of these Islamic dominated countries, they would throw you off a rooftop. Okay? They would stone you to death just because you're gay. And I don't even know how they think about all this transgender stuff going on either. So, yeah, I get that there are peaceful Muslims, but when you break down the theology of the religion, it is not compatible with the modern world. Sorry, not sorry. Speaking of irrational people, the Democrat Party is now running the Kamala Harris campaign with this prosecutor versus felon message. Obviously, Kamala being prosecutor because at one point she was. I find this ironic because the left in this country has historically been against the criminal justice system. See the defund the police movement back in 2020. These people also claim that Kamala Harris is polling better among Gen Z, but I find this hard to believe. I also find it ironic that they are running with the first black woman president, even though their Supreme Court picks, or Supreme Court justices, can't define what a woman is. So, if you're a Democrat watching this, can you explain how this makes any sense? Because I'm trying to find how this makes sense, and I can't. I literally can't. And it must be painful to go through, to jump through this many hoops in your head to make all of this make sense. So, after Biden dropped out, Kamala Harris had a press conference in which she had a phone call to Joe Biden, but the call sounded more like a recording or like an AI-generated voice of Joe Biden. in this same press conference, she kind of had a slip of the tongue and said that she was glad to have Joe Biden on the call. That's how she said it. So, yeah. She also had another press conference afterwards calling for an unconstitutional ban on assault weapons, which are already illegal, by the way, universal gun registration, and confiscation. So, lest I remind you what happened last time a superpower tried to seize weapons from those in North America, they got shot at. See the American Revolution against the British. By the way, assault weapons are fully automatic. You cannot own fully automatic weapons in the United States unless you have like a Class 3 weapons license from the federal government. So keep that in mind. For once, I can actually agree with something that BLM says, because they have also came out and slammed Kamala Harris and the DNC as a whole for essentially installing Kamala Harris as the Democrat nominee. You can find their statements on Twitter and stuff like that if you want, but they basically, said that she's an awful pick because they're basically just taking away the vote of the people to pick their nominee. They're not having any primaries or anything right now, so she's essentially just been ushered into the position. So, before I break out the old tinfoil top hat, because it's been a while, here are reasons that Kamala Harris is an awful pick for president. So, jot this down in case you want to have these debates or conversations with your family, friends, or coworkers. While she was involved in the criminal justice system in California, she held inmates past the time that they were supposed to be released from jail in order to be used for cheap labor in fighting wildfires. Also, she withheld evidence that would have cleared a man of wrongdoing and released him from death row until she was ultimately forced to by the Supreme Court. While she was the vice presidential nominee in 2020, she helped raise money to bail out rioters that summer who were burning down and destroying cities across America during their Summer of Love. And finally, she has failed as the border czar for the Biden administration. She recently had an interview where she was questioned about this, and she tried to give some kind of political talk around the answer about the border, and she was asked like, well, you've never been to the southern border, to which then she immediately replied, well, I've never been to Europe either, basically implying like, well, what's the problem? Like, you literally had one job. You had one job and you failed at it. Like, so as the elections come up, keep this stuff in mind, and don't let these people get away with this. Okay, hold their feet to the fire every chance you can. Also, here's another little mini rant. I have a big problem with people in any form of government in America being labeled as the czar of something, because the term czar derives from the Latin title Caesar or Kaiser, however you want to pronounce it. I'm not a Latin expert, but anyway, that term, that title, essentially means ruler, emperor, or king. From there, we see it, delineated to other countries, such as Germany before World War I, with their, top leader of the country being their Kaiser, Kaiser, or in Russia with the Tsar, like Tsar Nicholas, being king of Russia. So, when John Kerry was tasked of being the climate czar, like he's supposed to be the the ruler of the climate, like what? Or Kamala Harris being the border czar, the empress of the border. Like, we got to stop with that, okay? We got to stop with that stuff. So, yeah. Now, on to the last segment of the episode, and probably my favorite, the conspiracy theories. And for that, we gotta put on the tinfoil top hat. Alrighty. So, we gotta talk about Joe Biden. I think, and some other people on the internet also think, that Joe Biden is actually already deceased, but the DNC can't admit it right now because that would cause a lot of problems for the Kamala Harris presidential campaign and just for the DNC as a whole. This would explain why they are pushing Kamala so hard right now in the news to just kind of pad the way and maybe offer a soft landing to admit that Joe Biden is no longer with us. This would also explain the phone call with Kamala Harris during that one press conference where she almost said recording instead of call. Would also explain why they had to use a possible voice recording or AI generated voice recording of Joe Biden for that press conference. Also, during his address to the nation on dropping out of the presidential race, his face showed some like dark spots implying some kind of bruising, possibly from a type of injury. Maybe he had another fall that finally did him in, and that was the last recording they could get before he suffered a bad fate. Also, during this address, the trees in the background apparently didn't move. And the trees outside the window, I should add, didn't move. And the time on his watch apparently didn't match the real time that the address took place. Now, that one could be chalked up to the battery and it was dead or something. I would find it hard to believe, though, that the leader of the free world, would have such a little slip up as that, especially when you're got a schedule to keep. You got to meet with this prime minister at this time. You got to go have a lunch with these people from your administration at this time. You're constantly working on time. So to have your timepiece not match up with real time, doesn't match up in my head. Also, I know I talked about some of my thoughts on possible insider with Secret Service trying to take out Trump, but more and more information that comes out makes me believe this even more. I believe that the would-be assassin was some sort of Manchurian candidate. Why do I say this? Because for the past 8 years, the entire government system, corporate media included, have been spewing nothing but hatred for the man. Also, we know that the CIA tried to experiment with mind control substances and practices in the 60s and 70s, but what we know they tried didn't work. Side note, this is why people like Charles Manson, about got names mixed up, went cuckoo. Also with Ted Kaczynski, he went cuckoo because he was part of these experiments. So the CIA actually has a lot of blood on their hands for creating a couple of different serial killers. Anyway, moving back on, we know that the federal government only tells us what they want us to know. So who's to say that they don't have some kind of mind control technique or something that they can use to get people to do their dirty work? More so than just, bribing and blackmailing, stuff like that. Also, we know that certain medications for mental health issues cause people to become suicidal or homicidal. Don't know if this dude was on anything like that. And the perfect person to pull off an assassination attempt isn't somebody, super famous or whatever, because they're going to have eyeballs on them all the time. It would be somebody from a nowhere town in the middle of nowhere, USA, who's relatively quiet, not super popular within their community or whatever. You know, just like the shooter was. Nobody's ever heard of Butler, PA. Apparently, he was a quiet kid in class and stuff, and he was just kind of a nobody. Perfect person. Also, to cover up evidence of them trying to stage an assassination attempt, they would have him register as a Republican so it wouldn't look like, a Democrat tried to do it, although he made posts that were pro Biden on Gab and donated to Act Blue, which was a Democrat PAC or whatever. Anyway, you have him register as a Republican, dress him up in attire that would blend in with the crowd that day, which we know he did because he had a Demolition Ranch shirt on. So then he's camouflaged with the crowd. If somebody showed up in the middle of that rally wearing actual camouflage, it would stand out a little bit. Although many people at that rally probably like camouflage anyway and would be like, hey, look at that guy. But anyway, so yeah, register him as a Republican, dress him in attire that would blend in with the crowd, activate him with a code word or whatever, turn him loose, and see what happens. So, yeah, those are my conspiracy theories this week. And that's all I've got for notes this week. So, hopefully we don't have any more, emergency news come up by the time next week rolls around, because I'm the only one recording and editing this stuff. So, yeah, it's a little much sometimes, but I enjoy doing it. And, yeah, I don't know. Words are hard right now. I'm going to get off here and go grill some burgers. So, hit the like button, share it with some normies, and I'll see y'all next time. Take care.